Hello there, welcome back. Today we are returning to the 100 Scene Studies Challenge, and I am actually super excited about this challenge now. I have decided to make some changes, and I think it's for the better. So today you will notice I'm only using one brush. I have limited myself to a single flat brush. I have this really terrible tendency to over-render things. I do this in my sketching all of the time, where I start sketching something from reference and then I start diving into details in one particular part without even plotting out the rest of my sketch. For example, if I'm really excited about drawing the eyes in a portrait and I forget to plot down the nose and the ears and the lips properly, I will just jump right into detailing the eyes, and then it's too late to change it if things aren't right. So it's a tendency that I struggle with a lot. And something that has been really difficult about this 100 Scene Studies challenge so far is that I have been such a perfectionist with each and every scene because I want it to look exactly like it does in the screenshot. And I think that that is a terrible way for me to approach this challenge. If you've seen any of the previous videos in this series, I have just jumped around so much with trying to figure out how to deal with this perfectionism. I spend like a minimum of 3 hours on each of my studies, and that to me feels ridiculous. This challenge is supposed to be about learning and improving my skills, and right now I've been really focusing on trying to improve my colors. I don't think I need to be focusing on making these studies perfect to the reference. So that's why I've decided to just use one brush. I want to limit myself to a flat brush, and if in the future I decide to do these studies larger, I will continue to use a proportionally larger sized flat brush. Normally I do 2 scenes on one page, but lately I've been making them smaller and smaller to try to limit myself from focusing too much on the details. So let's jump into talking about the studies. I started off with Monsters University. I just watched it not too long ago, and
I absolutely love
the few scenes of Mike Wazowski as a child. I was gonna do the scene where he holds up a nickel because I feel like that is like the cutest scene in that movie, but I opted for this other scene where he is smiling after being found coming back through one of the doors, and I thought it was a really cute scene. I think that I did pretty well, and I'm really happy with how it came out. I tried different approaches for each of these scenes, and with this one I specifically went into blocking in the character first, and then I built up the background around him. I am in love with how I did the door. I think that turned out really well, starting with the darkest tones and then building my way up to the light. That's another thing that I think that I've forgotten over this time of being so incredibly frustrated with gouache because of this challenge, is that I think I started using it kind of like how you use watercolors. If you don't know, with watercolors you have to work from light to dark. If you put down dark colors first, you have a pretty good chance of them bleeding or getting reactivated and smudged. So that's why most watercolor artists will work from light to dark, building up their values in colors. But with gouache, since it's an opaque medium, you can work from dark to light, and I think that that's definitely the best way to use it. I'll be honest, I was a little lazy with all of the other details in the background. I did not want to do all of the extra details that were supposed to be on the sides. I just wanted to focus on painting Mike and seeing how that went, and I honestly just fell in love with the painting. And I think that that was actually a pretty good pick because it definitely set me up to not be too worried about the scenes matching the reference photo exactly, especially since I had taken creative liberties of not painting parts of the scene altogether.
I just didn't want to paint all of the mechanical parts that were on the sides of the doors.
So I'm actually pretty happy with that choice. And then I painted a scene from Rango, and this scene is terrible. I think that it was just a bad scene to pick from the movie, especially considering the size of the brush that I'm using and how I'm not planning on doing very many details, and this scene is just full of really teeny tiny details that I just didn't have. I just wasn't going to switch to another brush to do since I wanted to focus on being quick. So this scene only took about 20 minutes and I rushed through it, and once the colors were laid down, I just moved on. I just didn't feel like I could really get the details that I needed to make this scene work, so I just didn't really bother with it. I'm kind of sad that I didn't go back in and fix it up at the end, but I was pretty tired by the time I finished this page, so I just decided not to go back and finish it. And then our next scene is the scene from Ratatouille when Remy has just gotten off from a long day of work and Linguini left him with some cheese, bread, and grapes on the steps of the restaurant. So I really love this scene. I think it's really cute. I love the lighting and I just love everything about it. It's a very short scene, but I wanted to paint it, and I think it turned out super well. I started off by painting the bricks in the background, getting in those really dark parts of the scene. It definitely helped with establishing the values when it came to painting and everything else. I was really concerned about painting the napkin. It has some intricate details that I opted to not add. So I just decided to focus on getting the napkin correct in terms of colors, and then I went in and painted in all of the details over the top. I think that this was really successful because I only spent 2 hours on this entire page, and normally a single page of studies would take at least 6 hours. So I'm only on scene 19. I started this challenge at the beginning of the year and I just haven't been able to keep up with it. It has been so draining of my creative energy, and it's part of the reason that I started to hate using gouache. I put so much pressure on myself to make everything perfect, and it made me hate doing this challenge, hate using gouache, and I wanted to give up so badly. I also know that by the end of this challenge, my skills will have progressed so much, and I feel like I can't walk away from that, especially because of my desires to be a full-time professional artist. I'm going to still try to finish this challenge by the end of the year.
We will see how that goes.
I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work, but with these studies being a lot smaller or just taking up less time, I think that it's a lot more doable. had a lot of fun painting the cheeses. I do think that they needed some work because they were definitely not shaded properly, but I still think that they were fun to put in there. I like the knife in this scene, especially because I love how the parts of it that overlay with the napkin are pretty distinct, and then the rest of the handle kind of blends into the bricks in the background. That was super interesting to paint, and I really enjoy doing that. The small part of the baguette, I don't think it turned out very convincing, but it was still a lot of fun to paint. I really enjoyed trying my best with the details, but I don't think that it turned out very good either. I then painted in Remy, and I think that he turns out okay.
His ears aren't super visible in this scene, so he kind of looks weird.
But it's fine. I think he still looks cute, and that's all that matters. And unfortunately, my camera died while I was painting the grapes. I did go from dark to light while painting them, and it was a lot of fun. And then at the very end, I went in and added all of the tiny details. In the scene, there are crumbs, and then there is an empty grapevine thing also laying down. So I added those in, but with my brush, they really don't look good. I'm glad that they aren't super noticeable in the scene. And then this one was the one that took me the most amount of time. This Ratatouille scene took me 40 minutes, which is 5 minutes more than Monsters University. I think that this is a pretty good amount of time for me to spend on a scene. However, I think it would have taken a lot less time if I didn't decide to paint the background and then add all of the details on top of that. But who knows, I could have also sat there and really fumbled with trying to get that napkin right had I not painted it first. And then finally, we have our last scene from Song of the Sea. This is a really interesting scene. I honestly had no plans of painting this one. I was going to do a scene from Brave with the little bears, but considering how Rango went, I didn't want to take the chances of not being able to properly distinguish the bears from the background because this scene is just a bunch of beiges and browns, and I was really worried that it would end up really muddy and indistinguishable, especially at this scale, so I just decided to switch, and this one was saved in my Pinterest board for different scene studies, and I just decided to paint it real quick. I'll be honest, I haven't watched any cartoon saloon movies lately, and I really should because I love those movies. But I did really want to paint this scene. I don't think I did it justice. It's really hard to tell from what I painted because I didn't think to add like strands and things to make it look like I was painting hair, because in my mind I already knew that all of these blue parts were hair. So it doesn't turn out the most discernible, but I think that it still turns out pretty well. I worked from dark to light, and I think that this was a decent scene study. And considering it took the same amount of time as Rango, I think that I did a pretty good job. That also helps show that that Rango scene was just not the right one for this scale. So in the future, if I continue to paint this small of scene studies, I will make sure that I'm choosing scenes that are more conducive to the size. And I did want to mention real quick, because in all of my previous videos on this series, I used masking tape or washi tape to line the edges of each scene because I really love those crisp edges. But I did want to note that this sketchbook, it's a Master's Touch Fine Art Studio watercolor sketchbook, and it does not take tape or masking fluid very well. It's just been such a hassle and pain to remove. So moving forward, I'm just not going to bother with taping off the edges or using masking fluid. And worst case scenario, I could paint over the mistakes. I did want to mention that real quick, just in case anyone has been watching the series and was curious about that. I really enjoyed painting these, especially the Monsters University one and the Ratatouille one. Definitely my favorite so far. I'm super excited to continue this challenge now that I have put my perfectionism and left it at the door while I work on this challenge. I have been doing a lot lately to combat my perfectionism, and I'm planning on making a video about that soon, so stick around for that. Leave this video a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more art videos, because if you haven't noticed yet, I am uploading 3 times a week. I am hoping to do this for the rest of the year, but we will play it by ear and see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.